All right, what comes to mind when you think about growing up in Junction?
Well, uh, I was just, I don't know how old I was. And we live in Laverkin, Utah down there.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember moving up to Junction up here. And there's a house down the road here a little bit. And that's where the house we moved in when we got here to Junction.
Awesome.
And then I can remember my grandpa on that had a farm down here by the Black Hill. And his name was DeMille.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember coming down and moving into the house down there. Heck, I wasn't only about three years old or so.
What did you love to do before high school as a kid? What were some of your favorite hobbies?
Oh, I used to love to ride horses and that.
Did you do that throughout high school?
Oh yeah.
That's fun.
Let's see what else.
Aside from riding horses, is there anything else that you remember about your teenage years that stands out?
Yeah, they had a sawmill up on the mountain right up here, and my dad was up there working in the sawmill, and I was only about 12 years old. And I'd go up and stay with my dad, and they'd cut timber and saw, and as soon as they'd get a load of lumber, they only had a 2-ton truck, and they'd cut the lumber up there, put it on that 2-ton truck, and come off the mountain with it for the weekend. And there was switchbacks in there, and we'd have to get up on top of the lumber, and when they take them switchbacks, they'd have to stop and then back up and then go down to the next one. And it was kind of scary, but I'd stay up there with my dad, and I had a horse up there, and I finally hung up on the beaver there, and I'd taken, and in the evening, and then the deer would be coming in right there where the cabins was, and I'd get out and sneak up on them. And you could move up to them, and they'd see you move, and then you just stop and wait. And when they start eating, then you start to crawling again. I'd get right up in amongst them. Then I got, while I was working at the sawmill there, I finally found where all the government trails was up on that mountain up there. And I'd go on all the mountain trails. And I knew the Byron Lake and all of them places up there. And we'd, what else? else can I think of?
You had quite the childhood. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that's cool.
I'd find all the trails. They'd mark them so they'd know where they were up on the. There's a big flat,
Mm-hmm.
and heck, I'd go all over the mountain up in
That's awesome. I want to ask you a couple of questions about your parents. What do you remember the most? What stands out the most about your mom?
Oh heck! When we moved up here and stayed, Mom she'd taken and what the heck what'd she do? Anyway, we lived down here in where the reservoir backs up, and I'd be down there, and my grandfather and grandmother lived down there, and this Black Hill down here. I was all over that Black Hill, and
What would you say was most important to your mom?
oh, she was a good mother, and I had an older brother who was down there in the meadows down there, and we'd go all over them Black Hills down there, and they finally put in the reservoir dam down here,
Mm-hmm.
by Richfield way, and we'd go down in there in the summertime when the carp would come into the fields down there. And then we'd get us a pitchfork, and then we'd wade out in there and pitchfork them rainbow. And that. Oh heck,
Catch fish with a pitchfork?
yeah.
That's pretty cool.
You just slip up, you sneak up on them, and then pitchfork them and that. And mother, she'd take and bake them up, and that's where I learned not to love fish. Oh.
What about your dad? What do you remember the most about him?
Oh, he was a government trapper here in Paiute County here.
Mm-hmm.
We'd go ride clear down into towards Panguish that way, and then we camp over in a little old tent. What else?
That's awesome. You said he took you on the mountain quite a bit too and rode with you, didn't he?
Pardon?
You said that he took you up on the mountain quite a bit as well.
Yeah, I'd ride from Junction on the horse up the South Fork Trail and up on top.
Awesome.
There.
What do you think was most important to your dad?
Oh, he was a good dad. And he'd take me every place with him. And we'd be on the horses. And I remember one thing up there. There was a sheep camp up there. And it was up on the power line. And that power line come down off the mountain up there, down into the valleys here. And we went to the sheep camp one day, and he talked to the sheep herder and asked if he'd could buy a half lamb, and then we'd take it, Dad would take it, and we'd have bacon and that. He'd let me go with him everywhere. So he was a good dad.
That's good. Sounds like he shaped
He was
you.
a big man. He's about 6'6". He's big.
Big guy.
Yeah, he was.
That's cool. It sounds like he shaped you into a pretty fine young man yourself growing up.
Well, I had a brother, and he was bigger than me.
I want to shift gears just a little bit and talk about how you met Loana and how you convinced her to marry you.
Oh, my heck. I can't remember, but started going, when he was in high school, we started going together a little bit. And then, what the heck? Anyway, we started having fun together and stuff. They used to have parties in the summertime, and they'd go up the canyon and have games, and kick the cannon and all that stuff. And anyway,
So you guys were high school sweethearts.
yeah, we was real.
That's good.
And so, oh heck, what else?
You guys have been together a lot longer than you've been apart.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
I want to ask you about what you did for work mainly, and then what your favorite part about it was as far as your career.
Heck. And then, after we got married, we moved to Henderson, Nevada,
Okay.
and I got on work down there. They had them plants down there, and I got on down there to Henderson there, and we finally moved down there, and then
How long were you in Henderson?
I was down there for, oh my heck, I can't remember now.
That's all right. What do you remember? What made you decide to move back home?
Well, they had them power plants down there,
Mm-hmm.
and it was during the war time, and they started laying people off, and so we decided to move out of there, and it was getting worse. The war was getting on, And we decided we'd get out of there because there was a lot of Nellis Air Force Base was down there, and I was working in that benzene hexachloride, and I got so that it was getting pretty scary down there, scary and that. So we decided to move up here to Junction. And
What did you do for work when you got back to Junction?
I got on a VCA. It's the uranium down by Marysville. And I went down there, and the Deer Trail mine was down there. And I decided I'd go down and see if I could get a job there. So I went down and asked them if I could get a job in there. And he says, yeah, you can get on. And so it was at the Deer Trail mine. And I worked in the Deer Trail mine for about 20 years or more. And we finally decided to try to get out of there. And so I was there for about, my head. I was in the Deer Trail down there for about 50 years, I guess.
What was your favorite part about mining at Deer Trail?
Oh, it was an interesting job. And it was all underground. And sometimes it was kind of scary, and sometimes it wasn't. And
Tell me a little bit more about Loana. What would you say your favorite thing about your wife would be?
she was a good gal. And we got married and that. So then we moved up here. And my mind's going blank.
That's all right. What would you say that you are the most proud of looking back on your life?
Oh, heck. Anyway, when we got married in the temple down St. George. Mine's going blank.
That's okay. That's all right. We'll wrap it up here pretty soon. What would you say that you are the most thankful for?
Thankful for we got active in the gospel, and I was the bishop down there for the Junction ward for how long? Quite a few years. And
I think that's pretty powerful to look back and say that you're most thankful for living the gospel and the principles that are taught?
I was born in Circleville.
Okay.
But we eventually moved here full time when I was about in, I'd say, third grade.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was milking cows here in Junction and farming, and my mother had lost her first husband and was living in Circleville in that little house that she had built with the $5,000 money she got. And there was a bishop in Circleville, and he said, "Bill, I've got 15 widows up here in my ward. I want you to come and take one of them off my hands." And he met Mother at a dance, and they got married, and we lived in Circleville for a while, and he was driving back and forth, and he said, "That's too much driving, we've got to move." It wasn't like it is now with the cars. It doesn't matter how far you go. And that's where I was born. The house is still standing in Circleville where I was born.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What did you love to do as a kid growing up, like before high school?
I just remember just playing with kids and brothers and sisters and friends. Friends has always been a great part of my life. I just love friends, and I had friends both in Circleville and here. I can't particularly name any one that maybe was a little more important than the other, but just playing with doing kid things, playing hopscotch and all that kind of run my sheepy run, kick the can, all those kind of things. You know.
That's fun. What did you do when you got into high school? Did you have anything else that you added to all of that you liked to do?
We were I was one of the majorettes in the band. We had a marching band in high school. Cardine Allen was the teacher, and I and I think 4 or 5 other girls were majorettes, and we had like white satin costumes made because we were chieftains and kind of the Indian, the fringe and all that stuff. And so we done that, and mainly that was it, other than just participating in whatever went on in high school. Guy played basketball, varsity basketball, all 4 years, and so I loved to go to the basketball games and be a part of that, and cheered. We were with the first drill team in Paiute when I was a girl.
That's awesome.
In high school. So
it's fun.
And Guy and I didn't start going together till we were like in the beginning of the junior year and then senior year.
Awesome. Is there anything else about your teenage years that stands out? Any significant memories?
Probably my junior prom. That was always a highlight. I can't think of just playing. We didn't have TV and things, so we had to make our own fun, and so we played outside a lot.
Had to entertain yourselves a little bit
entertain
more.
ourselves, and so basically that. And we always were made to work. Mother made us work. If we went out and was out on a Friday night at 8 o'clock Saturday morning, we were kicked out of bed to get our Saturday's work done.
That's
We
good.
weren't allowed to, because Mother had a handful. When she married Daddy had 3 kids and Mother had 3 kids, and they put their lives together and had Darwin and I. So she had a full-time job with children, and anyway.
Keep trying to keep up with all
Yeah,
you
and we had
hooligans.
to help. I remember Mother was a Relief Society president. In fact, twice, but I had to cook dinner when she was away doing Relief Society work, and so I was taught to do all of that, and I'm very grateful. That's been meant a lot to me in my life, of learning to do those things.
That's awesome. What would you say, talking about your mom, what would you say was most important to her?
Probably family, but right under that was the gospel, because she taught us right from the little about Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ, and we were always taken to church and to primary and all of those things that were important in molding our lives.
Yeah.
She was a good mom, had a lot of patience, and very loving and caring.
That's awesome. And I've found that the gospel and family go pretty hand in hand.
Hand in hand.
So,
You can't love one without loving them both.
Exactly. So it sounds like she had her priorities
She
straight.
did, and
which
she
is
was
good.
she was a great mom.
That's awesome. So speaking of your dad, what do you remember the most about your dad?
Daddy was kind. He never did spank me. He'd always send Mother to go and get us and trim us a little when we were up. But Daddy was very kind and fun, but he was a worker. He never would go to the reunions and that with us because he had to stay home and irrigate or milk cows. And he was, his parents came from Denmark, and he was one of 12 children and learned to work, and he expected all the rest of us to learn to work. But he was always kind, and as Mother and Daddy put their lives together and their kids together, Mother's kids would stand up for Daddy, you know, and take his side, you know, compared to Mother if there was an issue. And that's the way, you know, Mother was too. And so they made a great step parents and Grandpa and Grandma.
That's awesome.
And that's, I think, because of that. But that's one thing I remember though and regret, that he never would, he wasn't a hunter or a fisherman. He just worked. And he loved to visit. And that's where I guess I get my gift of gab from, is my dad.
That's good. That's good. What would you say was most important to your dad?
Family and the gospel. He wasn't always active, but he became active when he became a bishop and was in the 70s of the stake. And I would say that the gospel and his family.
Awesome. If your mom and dad had a message, even just a short message that they could leave with you and all of your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, what do you think it would be?
To love one another unconditionally and to be a peacemaker. To try to keep peace even if maybe you don't think it's right. Keep peace and keep the family together, because they worked hard to do that. And that's what I tell my kids, no matter what, when we're gone, keep the family together and get together often. Mother was she loved to have family dinners. And even when she was in her 80s, she'd say, will you help me? And I had sisters that lived in Richfield and Dawn out here on the end of town. And we was always having family dinners and pulling our family together.
Awesome. Let's talk about you and Guy for a minute. So you guys met in high school.
Mm-hmm.
How did you know that he was who you wanted to settle down with?
Well, I didn't at first. In fact, I didn't even like him at first. But we started dating a little, and I think one thing, we were in the Golden Green Vaults in the mutual that they had then, and the dance director here had asked him to be her partner to learn the dances and teach him. So he learned all of those and said he took me. We'd go up to the elementary school, and he had the records and everything, and he'd teach me these dances, and we learned to dance and loved to dance together. We tap danced to buttons and bows together in those days, because he took tap dancing and I did too. Plus we done ballroom dancing. But as we grew fonder and fonder of each other, then I knew that he was the one I wanted in our senior year, and we graduated in May and we're married in November.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Did you work much after getting married?
Not right at first.
Okay.
We moved to Henderson, Nevada, the first year we were married, and I didn't work at all down there because I didn't know anything. But after I started having children, we didn't work until Melanie was probably about in the 4th grade when I started working outside the home to try to help supplement the, money and that.
What did you do for work?
Well, I worked a little bit at Stan's store, and I worked at the post office here in Junction for a while. After Mother retired, I took her job as a clerk, and I worked, I'd say, about a year there. I worked in the library in the high school for 3 years, and then I went to work at the sewing plant in Circleville. I worked there for a year or so, I can't remember. And that's when I was asked to go to work for State Bank in Circleville. They were opening a bank there. And I was asked to be one of the full-time workers. And I went there. I worked 25 years and 9 months there. And I loved it. I really loved it. I loved meeting people and helping them. And I just loved it.
That's awesome. Well,
I retired when I was 72.
you were working hard then.
I did work.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I love to work.
That's good.
I like to be busy, and I love to work.
So in regards to the banks, we'll say that was probably your favorite place
Right,
to be, and
it was.
you were there the longest.
Right.
What do you feel like made you successful at that?
I feel like, I guess you could call my gift of gab, because I love to associate with people. I like to find out about them. I like to help them. I like to visit with them. And when I retired, that's the thing I missed the most, was visiting with the people that I'd made friends with. I really missed them. And I just love to be around people and visit with them and interact with them.
Yeah, you're one of the best communicators that I've met, as far as just being able to
Oh, thank
light
you.
up a room just talking,
Thank you.
which is awesome.
That's what I love to do.
What do you believe about yourself that helped you overcome hard times? Like, what were some of the things that you, looking back on now, because nobody gets through life without going through hard times. What do you think was special about you that helped you get through hard times?
I think my testimony of the gospel. When I had my breast removed with cancer, it was the blessings and the people around me that helped me, and I just had a feeling that, and I had a blessing. A friend, Steve Peterson, gave me a blessing, and he said, "I knew you was going to be okay, Loana," because I was felt prompted of that after, and that was what got me through it. I just knew that Heavenly Father was there, and if it was meant to be, I'd be okay and raise my kids. And
That's awesome.
so, yeah, that's good.
Can't go wrong relying on the right guy, right?
No, you can't.
What would you say were the 3 most influential events in your life that like shaped your life?
Well, I think marriage in the temple was probably one of them. Being a mother to 5 kids, that was my greatest. That's the greatest thing I've ever done on this earth, is bring 5 wonderful children, and they've all been good kids and hard workers and always done good things, and I'm very proud of them. And I would say, knowing that, because it ties in with the gospel, but just having the knowledge that, when we leave this earth, we're going to be together if we live right, and that anchors me. That gives me great hope.
That's awesome. Talking about your kids, is there any special stories or fond or even funny memories about each one of them, either around the time they were born or early childhood?
I can't think of individually, except for after Keith and Arlene had been married, Keith developed viral pneumonia. When he was very ill, they took him by ambulance to Salt Lake because they couldn't treat him, and they didn't know he was just getting worse and worse. And I remember that I came. Joanne took me up there because I didn't drive, and we went that one night, and the doctor says, "Well, we're ready to catheterize his heart," because he says we just can't find out, and he's getting very serious. And I called back home to the Junction ward, and I asked them if they'd have a prayer circle, because this was very common in those days to get the ward together and have a prayer circle. And I told him what was going to happen, and they got together about 7 o'clock that evening. And so Joanne and I left the hospital, and about 10, and when we got there the next morning, they said, "He's changed. We've discovered what kind of virus is. We're treating him, and he is much better." And I know that was an answer to prayer. And of course, there's always all the little sicknesses with all the other kids and things, but that was one that really, really, I just shaped my life with the power of prayer.
That's amazing.
And I've used it many, many times. I just can't believe of not being able to get on my knees and talk to my Heavenly Father.
Yeah, he listens for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Were you ever scared to be a parent?
Yes, at first one, because you don't know what to do. You know, you really have never done that before. And then afterwards, you know, just hoping that you've trained them right. And I remember, like something, I can't even remember what Paul done. And I said, so where have I failed as a mother? And he says, Mom, you haven't failed as a mother. I'm the one responsible for my actions. And don't let me hear you say that again, because you've been a perfect mother. And that just really made me feel comforted. And I says, well, yes, I have. I've done the best that I knew how. And he says, it's not your fault, Mom. That's on my shoulders.
So let's talk about your siblings a little bit. Is there any sibling that you had that you got along with better, that you had better memories with, or any memories of, you know, growing up in your house that stand out that you want to share?
Well, Daddy's youngest daughter, Virginia, she was just, I don't know, we just bonded. We really bonded. And I was a lot younger than her. But she just took me into her heart and played with me a lot, you know, and things. And after they got married, she and Lynn got married, I would go down there and stay with her in the summertime and tend. Steve was just born, their oldest, and just I just absolutely adored her. And I know when she died of cancer, my heart was broken, but I really was close to her. Billy and Charmaine, we were very, very close. Don was older, but he lived here in Junction, and we were very close. Palma had just got married right after they got out of high school, right after Mother and Daddy got married, and so I wasn't as close to her because I wasn't around her as much until later years. And then, of course, there's Alita lived far away. That was Mother's oldest daughter, and so I didn't have an opportunity to be around her a lot, but I grew to love her. She was a great, great person. Went through lots of hardships, and then Darwin and I, of course, we just grew up here together, and we always just had all of our family gatherings together, and just enjoyed. And our kids are like brothers and sisters. They're just that close. So he was probably the closest one, but Charmaine and I were really close, and Virginia.
That's cool.
Wonderful, wonderful siblings. And you know, we had an 80th birthday for Mother, and I remember Virginia. She said, she's Grandma, I want you to know that there's no such word in my vocabulary as stepmother. You are my mother. And that's the way Mother, they just made us that way. We were all in. When the funeral came, we didn't list them as stepbrothers and sisters. They were brothers and sisters.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
But they were good step-parents.
That's great. Sounds like your
great
parents,
role model.
Yeah, your parents definitely shaped the way the home was, and
right,
and
absolutely.
It's a good environment to be in. As far as your relationship and your marriage, when you think about Guy, how would you describe him?
Moody, but love, fun to be around, and he likes to hunt and be in the mountains, and he's loved that, and I respected that. I've never had a problem with him going, unless it was on a Sunday. We had a few, before he got really active in the church, we had a few arguments about that, taking the kids on Sunday Eastern and things like that, but he's just been a great husband and supported me and been good to help me. In fact, he does as many dishes in the house now as I do and things, but he's been a good father. He was stern, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, but he's been a good husband and a good father. We've had a lot of good times together.
Awesome. What message do you have for Guy that you would want him to keep in mind?
It'll all be worth it. Just hang on and do the best you can and try hard, and it'll all be worth it, and we'll all be together again.
I love that. What 3 words would you say best describe who you tried to be in life and how you wanted to be remembered?
in 3 words. Honest. It's very important to me to look nice and to keep myself up and to be a hard worker till the very end. I love to work, and it's what Guy, he said, come and sit down. I says, no, I can't sit down. I got these things to do. But that is important to me. It's just, I don't like to be just doing nothing. Very boring.
Not a lazy bone in your body, is there?
Well, there might be a few now, but I really don't.
Took
Maybe
it,
tired bones, not
Yeah.
lazy bones.
tired bones, not
But
lazy
I love
bones.
to keep busy. I love to serve others. It's my greatest joy is helping and serving others. I love that.
That's awesome. In regards to others, what would you say that you've learned about other people in the world?
I think not to be so quick to judge by the way they look. To remember there's good in everybody, and I need to be better at this, I know, but to just realize that they're all children of our Heavenly Father, and to help them in any way that we possibly can, and treat them as we'd like to be treated.
I like that. I like that a lot. What do you think the world needs more of right now?
Love and concern for others, and peace in their hearts. If they have peace within themselves, then I think it passes on to others, those around them, and to not be so quick to just, want to hurt others. To have more love and compassion for our fellow men and women, and to try to understand. We don't all think alike, and we're not all meant to be alike, but to not be so judgmental and try to help others.
I like that. What would you say were the 3 best decisions you ever made?
Being born to the parents I was, and being married to my husband who took me through the temple for an eternal marriage, and of course my children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, all my posterity. They are without a doubt the most precious things on this earth
I love that.
and in the eternities.
You may have just said it, but I'm going to ask it. What are you the most proud of in life?
Well, of course, my family and what we've done, but I'm proud that I was able to keep myself worthy to work in the church on all the callings that I've been. I've been a primary president and a mutual president and a Relief Society president, and even the teachers and classes I've taught and everything. I just am so grateful for those callings that have helped mold me into what I am probably right now.
Awesome. I don't think anybody gets to where you're at, having lived the life that you've lived, having regrets about keeping the faith.
I have no regrets at all over that.
That's amazing.
No.
What would you say were the 3 most positive moments in your life?
How about 5? When
Let's-
I gave
let's do
birth to my
5.
kids.
I love that.
Those were the special.
That's awesome.
My 5 children.
That's awesome. What message would you like to share with your family?
To love each other, to keep the commandments of God so that we can all be together when we leave this life, and to respect and honor your manhood and your womanhood, and to just be good citizens and good parents.
Awesome. This is the last question I've got for you. What would you say that you are most thankful for?
It would be family. Not only our guys and my children and him, but all my brothers and sisters and their families, and just family. And for a mother and father who taught us how to love.
I love that.
You're
This has
welcome.
been fun.
Thank you, Colton.